So this paragraph starts with, we would implore you to honor sustainability above innovation, to honor partnership and collaboration over control and domination. I mean, that's what you're up against. Then they go on to say, the qualities of domination and control came from us. These qualities have created the disharmony you now live with.
They all tell you very clearly, and they're not the only ones. There are many other independent geneticists that tell you human DNA is a patchwork of spliced DNA material. It is not a DNA strand, as we would call that is naturally evolved and was created. It's a very definitely and very obviously a patchwork of spliced DNA pieces together and make up the DNA that gives us these very specific functions and features that we have.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another incredible talk with Michael Tellinger. It's been an incredible journey for he and I over the last probably 5 years as we've explored his terrain in South Africa. And we go off on wild adventures, and I do my Sight Whisper thing, and we kind of build what we think we know about maybe what happened in the long time ago. So welcome, everyone.
We're going to continue our conversation and continue this journey of discovery. And what I'd like to do this session is to pick up where we sort of left off last time. We were talking about Adam's calendar, right on the edge of the Barberton Crater, this huge 20-kilometer diameter crater surrounded by mountains. And the ancient gold mining, the more recent gold mining, the gold rush there in the 1880s, and then the modern gold mines that are still there. And I touched upon the Sheba Gold Mine that is situated there. And Sheba Gold Mine is basically right across from Adam's calendar. When you look out east, across from the two central calendar stones, you look out east across the Horus stone that marks the sunrise in the east on that side of Adam's calendar itself, right on the edge of the cliff. I mean, that Horus stone is literally 3 or 4 meters from that sheer drop of 200 or 300 meters down into that valley or the crater or so I want to come back and just talk a little bit about Sheba Gold Mine and some of the mysterious things going on there. Now, that story goes back to when I first came out. The first time that I came in I think it was like November 2007, after meeting Johann Heine at one of my lectures in Pretoria, I think it was in March 2007, he came to one of my lectures and I was talking about slave species of God and all that stuff. And Johann came and he was in the audience. And that's where we met. After my lecture, he said to me, can I show you some interesting ruins in South Africa? I said, yeah, of course. So everyone was leaving the lecture hall and he whipped out his laptop and we just sat there around the table and he started showing me these aerial photographs of the Stone Circle ruins that he'd been taking for about 15 years at that stage already. He was the only person in South Africa at that time that actually had hundreds of aerial photographs of the Stone Circle ruins. They did not exist outside of Johann Heine and anywhere else. People had not seen them. So obviously I wasn't aware of it. No one had seen it before. It wasn't published. It was in a few very scant archaeological reports that were, maybe 10 pages or so from decades ago and 100 years ago. Now suddenly I've got these beautiful high resolution color photographs of these Stone Circle ruins covering the mountains and mountaintops of southern Africa. And so you can just imagine what happened. It blew my mind. And then a sequence of events happened that still just boggles the mind. In fact, I might as well start with that because it's a great story. It's an incredible adventure, and it's how these things unfold. It's this kind of that when you're ready and you're looking for this information, the universe or the management or whatever you want to call them go, okay, here you go. Yes. And they literally, fate, the Holy Spirit, the morphogenetic field, whatever you want to call it, God brought Johann and I together, right? And it was just incredible. So I was just blown. It literally shattered my world when I saw that. And I instantly knew that this had something to do with what I wrote about enslaved species of God. Instantly, subconsciously, genetically, I knew this was Anunnaki stuff. These were the fingerprints of the Anunnaki I was looking at here. No one has ever seen this before. So, we got so excited talking. We spoke for about 20 minutes or so, maybe half an hour. Then Johan left and I left. I went back home and I didn't have his contact details or nothing.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it was about 5 months later. Was it March, April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months later or so. I was working at home and I was just thinking, I need to find that guy that showed me those photographs. And I had no way of getting hold of him. So I went back to March and the list of people, the names and contact details of the people that came to my lecture in Pretoria. And luckily I had that, because often we don't keep those details. But early days of me doing these lectures, because I started in South Africa around Johannesburg and Pretoria and then Cape Town, and I traveled through South Africa quite extensively in those days doing lectures everywhere. And so I found it, and I found his name and his email address. And so I emailed Johan to say, I'd love to just connect with you and find out more about these ruins and these pictures that you showed me. And literally, as I closed the email, as I hit sent, I opened my inbox, and there was an email coming to me from Johan Heine's personal assistant. It was in the same minute that I reached out to him, he reached out to me. This is after 6 months, or maybe even more, 7 months. Now, if that's not serendipitous, or if that's not preordained somehow, then you got to start questioning your role and your sentient presence here. So that led to me, literally within a month, Johan organized a trip for a helicopter flight for me and a whole bunch of people. He invited all the archaeologists, all the geologists, all the historians, anthropologists, etc., from Wits University, that's my old university in Johannesburg, from Pretoria University, from Cape Town. He put out 2 Huey helicopters that take 9 people each. I think they're 9 or 10 people, including the pilot. So he invited all these people, thinking that maybe 20 people will rock up or so. And he was going to fly us around and show us the aerial views of the stone circles, because there were no drones in those days. The only aerial photographs and videos that existed were his. He didn't have many videos, but a lot of photographs. So I was invited to come as well on that very special first weekend. So I drive from Johannesburg to Nelspruit, and that's about a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive. And I arrive there and I'm very excited. I meet Johan, and so we're about to go out. The Huey helicopters are there ready to go. Now keep in mind that Johan, the reason he's got these helicopters, because he owns this huge firefighting, bush forestry firefighting company. They have dozens of these helicopters and aeroplanes for putting out forest fires. That's his business, and he's got thousands of workers and forestry workers that put out fires and do the fire breaks in the forests and up the mountains and so forth. And they just maintain the forests to prevent fires. And that's why he's got access to these helicopters and aeroplanes. And it's because of that he had accumulated all these photographs over a 15-year period prior to that. So I arrived there, and now we're waiting to go out and fly around and getting ready, with our cooler box and sandwiches and picnic, and because we were flying out and staying out the whole day, landing on the mountains. And so out of all the people that he invited, guess how many people arrived? Zero. 0 people arrived that he invited. None of the archaeologists, geologists, historians, anthropologists, nothing. Not one of those people arrived from all the universities. I think it was 3 major universities in South Africa. Not one of those people arrived. That's when I realized the incredible levels of arrogance and conceitedness of these academics. And the result was that I ended up with all this information because I arrived. And Johan and I formed a close bond, and the rest is history, right? We are now 14 years down the road. So cut a long story short, on that very first trip, actually, then what we did actually, Johan said, well, I don't want to just fly out with you and I in a helicopter. Let's invite some friends. So he made a few phone calls and invited a bunch of friends from the Nelspruit area that could come there quickly to the airport, because his office is right there at the old Nelspruit airport up in the mountains. And so a bunch of people arrived, and we actually even flew somewhere and picked somebody up in the helicopter. We landed on their farm and picked them up to fly around with us. So we flew around, and one of the guys there was a guy called Brian Young that joined us. Brian is still down there. He actually lives in the Barberton Crater, and he runs a flying school. He's a pilot. He's an ex-military, he's like one of those the recce kind of guys, the military special forces unit guys. And he's a pilot, and he runs a little flying school. They call Pyramid Flying School, right there in the Barberton Valley. Yeah, his flying school is called Pyramid Flying School, and guess where his flying school is located? With a field, with a little grass, what do you call it, runway. It's for light aircraft, and mostly what do you call them? These things with the kites, the
hang gliders.
Like,
no.
What are they called?
Hang gliders go off a cliff. I don't know. Some because they're ultralight.
It's the motorized hang gliders. What they called? I forget.
Ultralight?
Microlights. Yes, thank you. So it's mostly a microlight flying school, and very light aircraft. And his flying school is called Pyramid Flying School. He's got a little lodge there that people can come stay in for a week as long as they do that, and then they fly around. And his flying school and the runway is right next to the pyramids. Down his calendar. Again, you can't make this stuff up. So anyway, Brian was flying around with us, and he's just an amazing guy, very knowledgeable. But one of the interesting things about him was that he was the chief of security at the Rand refinery in Germiston, Johannesburg. The Rand refinery is the biggest gold refinery, one of the biggest gold refineries in the world, and the main gold refinery in South Africa. All the gold mines and platinum mines, and they send all the gold and platinum to the Rand refinery, where it is then processed to much finer and 99% refined gold and whatever else they process there. So he told me a lot of stuff about the Rand refinery, and especially the security and what happens once trucks pull in and the doors close behind the trucks, and how nobody knows what goes on in the Rand refinery. You can't audit the Rand refinery, because what goes on in there belongs to the Rothschilds and the international banksters, right? They own the gold, because pretty much they buy the gold from the gold mines. So remember, once they've paid for the gold, and it's just an incredible scam. But the most important, he told me a few things. One of the things he, for example, told me is that all the major aircrafts, especially KLM, fly out at least 50 kilograms of gold on every flight that leaves Johannesburg for Europe, for Holland. Every flight, and that's probably like 3 or 4 flights a day. And then I discovered many years later that he was not lying, that it was true, because I was doing a lecture somewhere in Europe, I forget where it was, it might have been Switzerland, and one of the people in the audience at my workshop was a KLM pilot. And he came to me afterwards and said, you know what? You're 100% right about this gold flying out, because we always have to sign out the secret thing that they bring on, the special agents or special units or whoever, the cops bring it onto the aircraft, they sign it in, it's a special delivery, no one knows what it is, and it's highly suspicious what it is, and it's normally around 50 kilograms. So it was confirmed that it was this gold, and all the pilots all say that they know it's gold, but no one talks about it. So that was a very interesting thing, and so that was confirmed that what Brian Young told me was actually true. He wasn't just making it up. And he told me another very important thing that took many more years, until when you were here, John Paul, when you were here in 2018 with that first research group, when we discovered the fossils, January 2018, for that whole month, right? That's when we met Paul. What's wrong with my brain this morning? I can't think clearly. Paul, somebody. who was the consultant geologist that was called by Sheba Gold Mine. Remember, he appeared just out of the blue, and he came for a pizza and a cup of coffee to see the museum. And there we met him, and he was so knowledgeable about all this stuff. So I'm always attracted and wonder where these knowledgeable people come from that arrive to tour or view the museum or come and talk to us. And then he told me he was a consultant engineer that was in 1985 or 86. He was called by Sheba Gold Mine to come and investigate a unique phenomenon. That was Paul, whose surname I forget now, but we'll post that interview I did with him. And and he confirmed, this Paul guy confirmed exactly what Brian Young told me in November 2007, that Sheba Gold Mine is the richest mine in the world, gold mine in the world by far, and that there are strange things happening there that nobody knows. There's like these veins of gold, like thick jelly gold, that's almost like oozing out of the veins, out of the walls. And what the gold mine does is that gold mines get given, I don't know if that's still the case today, but for many decades, gold mines are given a quota of gold that they were allowed to mine. They were allowed to mine up to a certain amount. So that, I don't know why, but anyway, those are the rules. And so when the Sheba Gold Mine didn't make enough gold from the ore or whatever, they would go into this one section of the mine, Sheba Gold Mine, and take out some of this virtually pure oozing gold that's coming out of the walls in these veins. So that is a very strange thing to say, like, really? Okay, I'll take that with a pinch of salt. And just like the pilot confirmed that they were flying out all this gold out of Johannesburg every day, Paul arrives and he tells me, remember, I don't know if you were there. You were there, I'm sure you were there, if you remember. And I asked him, do you know anything about Sheba Gold Mine? And he said, yes, I know a lot about Sheba Gold Mine. I was called out in 1985 or 86, it was, to come and investigate a very special, unusual phenomenon. So he went out there, and what they discovered was what in mining terms, they called old works.
Yes.
This was mining there before them. They call it old works, and because it's old works, obviously people in the old days didn't have the modern technology we have today. So old work mining is always deemed to be dangerous. So you're not supposed to go in there. But when he said he got in there underground, it was this huge underground cavern. He said it was larger than the Vatican. You couldn't see the other side. And all around this huge cave in the mine that they found by accident were these veins of gold that were oozing out of the walls. Literally like solid jelly veins of gold. But the more interesting thing, obviously that's already mind-blowing enough. So already Paul then confirmed what Brian Young told me about Sheba Gold Mine in 2007. So that turned out to be true. And then Paul told me the reason they were interested in wasn't about the fact that they found these veins of gold oozing out. That was just, their benefit. They're a lucky discovery. But what was more puzzling to them is that some of these veins of gold were hollowed out, emptied out. Somebody was there mining the gold before them and had the technology to remove the gold from those veins without blasting or without explosions and without drilling. They had the capacity to just suck that gold out. And that's what he came to investigate. So when I talk about Sheba Gold Mine, it's a very unique, very special place. And when it was discovered in 1870-something, or 1880, it was already an old mine. They didn't discover gold there. They discovered an ancient mine that they just started to re-mine. And keep in mind that right under Adam's calendar, there is another gold mine.
Yeah.
It's actually an entrance that we discovered in August 2019 or August 2018 with one of the research groups. We went and looked for the old deserted entrance shaft or entrance tunnel into the gold mine that was literally right under Adam's calendar, and we found it. So this whole place is just riddled with ancient gold mines, fingerprints of the Anunnaki everywhere. And this is why I say that entire Barberton Crater is not a meteor strike. It is not a volcanic crater. It is an ancient gold mine that the Anunnaki founded below Adam's calendar. It was probably much higher. The level, surface level was much higher than it is today. And over thousands and thousands of years, probably 200,000 years or more of mining, they just eroded and mined out that whole area. And I wanted to just start today's discussion by sharing that with you, since I did bring it up. And it remains one of my favorite stories about the whole gold mines and gold activity.
Are the pyramids inside the crater or on the edge of the crater?
Yes, the pyramids are right there. You know, when you stand at Adam's calendar and you look down east, the pyramids are just to the right of the Horus Stone, which marks the rise of the sun. So just to the right are the pyramids, which line up with the rise of Orion's belt, like I've said in our previous chats. So the pyramids, the three stones south of the Horus Stone, that if you stand them up, they line up with the three stars of Orion's belt, and behind them in the distance are the pyramids that line up with that.
Well, the reason I was asking is because when we went, I mean, we only had just a very limited time to go climb around the pyramids on that trip, but the information that we got from, spirit whispering, sight whispering on that day was that the pyramids were created as they left. So that kind of fits the story, that if they did this strip mining, pit mining thing, completed the crater, then when they left, they put these pyramids in place as proof of their presence and a testament to their technology and what they achieved. So they explained that these pyramids were a statement of pride in the work that they had done and what they were able to leave.
See, now I forgot that bit, because we've just covered so much information, and unless you write this stuff down or you record it and then you watch it afterwards, when we go on these trips, as you know, there's just so much information and discovery happening all the time. You remember a lot of it, but there's some little details, and that's a detail that I actually forgot. So thank you for bringing it up and reminding me. So I just want to go back to that day that we went down there with that group that in January 2018, right? And we went down to the pyramids to look at them and explore them. We flew the drone there, if you remember. Yep. And so we got a good look at what it looks like. But prior to that already, in 2008, Brian Young and I flew a few times with his microlight. We flew a few times over the pyramids and that whole valley, the stone circles there as well. And they're obviously badly destroyed and reused and abused. But we got a very good look at the pyramids and what they look like. And there's no doubt about it. Those are not accidental structures.
No, because they're all composed of exactly the same stone. So I remember that it was a very granite-looking stone. It's a composite stone. It kind of has a bluish hue to it. But all of the entire structure is built out of boulders of this stone. So, yes, a glacier just carefully, packed them all together, stacked them beautifully. And, that's what glaciers do. It's incredible.
Yeah. That whole Barberton Crater and the hills and the rim around it is just a fascinating place. And like I said before, it is the attention of the geologists that study the oldest organisms on Earth, geological organisms. I forget what you call those things now. And it's a very interesting and important place in studying ancient primordial geology and species, organisms, very ancient organisms. But I want to come back to more of the gold mining and bring you into with your shamanic special skills and some of the sight whispering and the guardians of these sites. We spoke about your 3-day journey, your vision quest up the mountain. At the main stone circle, what we've started calling the welcome circle, where you determined that the Anunnaki actually built that originally. It served as like a research lab. Maybe you can I'm going to just hand it over to you, and you talk about that, what you discovered and found in your vision quest.
Sure. So, for those of you that haven't seen any of the other footage or seen the Anunnaki Apology, is what it's called. the quick version is that we had this incredible month of just exploring and researching, and we were covering a lot of ground. And there was something about these two conjoined circles that when we were there and this first guide appeared, spirit appeared, that was saying this is where we welcomed people to show off, because these two circles were our working labs. And if you stood here on this hill where we were standing, I said, you can look out, and for every hillside you look, you can see our work. So we could show off, we could explain what we were doing here. You could see all the different circles. So it was kind of this welcome place where we invited guests to come and show them what we did. So then we went off and did a whole bunch of other stuff, and I just felt really drawn back there. I said, to do the stuff that I need to do, I need to spend a long time at one particular site, because there were we had so many questions. Because I would go to a site, we'd contact someone, we'd get some information, we'd get a little teeny piece, and then we'd move on. So
sorry, I muted my mic. I wanted to add to that, John Paul. Often, because we're so naive in our thinking about all this stuff, because it's so far from our reality and the world we find ourselves in today, what these Anunnaki were doing here and how it worked. Often the questions we ask are just so irrelevant and disconnected from what their reality was and what they were actually doing. So it's like asking you, why is it important to have shoelaces in your shoes? Like a stupid question like that, Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might even be irrelevant, but carry on. So your 3-day vision quest, yeah.
No, but that is true. I think that the questions that we ask, because we don't have any, you and I have a bit of a clue now. So the questions we're asking today when I do connecting to the spirits are much better than the questions we asked 5 years ago. You're like, what? Wow. That's about it. So in my tradition, in the shamanic tradition, when you go to a particular place, you can do a vision quest. So a vision quest basically in my tradition is 3 days of fasting and prayer. And you go and you fast, you have water, but you try to connect with the spirits of the land, or you connect with a particular spirit. And if you are genuine about your intent, after 3 or so days, you'll get answers to your questions. So my request was to go up there and just camp out and have 3 days of vision quest and see if I could get some of these answers.
Can I tell you something? I never told you at the time, but I must tell you, you were very brave. And I don't know if I would have done that, because there are leopards up in those mountains.
Yeah, you told me that much later, thank God.
Yeah, and I just thought, okay, he's going up there alone to spend the night in a tent for 3 nights. Should I tell him about the leopards or shouldn't I? I didn't tell you about the leopards because generally they leave you alone, but they do hunt at night. That's leopards are nocturnal creatures. That's when they hunt mostly. Yeah. Mostly. And so I'm very relieved to hear from you after 3 days that you were still okay.
Oh well, so that adds a serious level of drama to the story. So
exactly.
Again, it's a fabulous story of adventure, but what basically happens is I get up there, I pitch the tent, I do my ceremonies to say I'd love to talk to the builders of this place. That's who I'm after. Because many times you and I will go out and we'll contact whoever. And I remember we went into one circle and we contacted 2 different layers of people who occupied the circle. And it was just driving me crazy because the Anunnaki were saying this, but the Dravidians were saying that, and then they were talking to each other through me, and it was a bit, So I said, look, I want to just talk to the builders. If I could talk to the builders, I've got, lots of questions about how these circles worked, what you were doing here. And so I spent the day exploring ringing stones, which is that's another conversation about frequency and vibration and sound, but that's another conversation. And the kind of fun, dramatic part of the story is when you're in these circles, there's a very strong electromagnetic field that you're in, and it can be very draining. Or some people that we've had on these trips get headaches. There have been some people that said, look, I just have to leave. I can't stay. They'll have ringing in the ears. They'll have all kinds of symptoms. You and I, luckily, are pretty immune to it. I mean, we just kind of roll with it. So
I must admit that recently I have started feeling the energy of the stone circles, because I always call myself an insensitive bastard, and that's possibly why I do this work. I get excited about it, but it doesn't affect me too much, while it affects people around me, and when they come quite extremely on some occasions. But in the last 2 years or so, I've definitely started feeling the energy, especially the blowbush grass circle and the others as well. That when we did our shamanic journey with you recently, what was that? That was in August last year. I can feel when I walk towards the stone circle, I can suddenly feel my fingertips starting to tingle.
Yep.
And that's a whole new experience for me. So I'm very excited about that I can now actually feel the energy of the stone circle myself, and I know what other people are experiencing, probably on a much more deeper level.
Yeah. Yep. So I was concerned. I thought, I'm going to be spending 3 days inside this electromagnetic field. Is that okay? But I'd been guided about where to park the Jeep and find a shortcut into the circle. So I thought, all right, I guess we're all right. So I quickly checked in and said, is this going to be all right? And whoever talks to me and my guides said, yeah, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. So it was getting late in the afternoon. So I'm guessing 4-ish, 5-ish in the afternoon, something like that. I pitched my tent with the door facing west, because that's facing the circles. So I thought, I'm feeling a little bit tired. I'll just go have a little lie down. So I crawl in the tent and I'm thinking, it's really hot, because this was January, right? So January for us in the Southern Hemisphere is summer. So it's summer, the sun's going down in the west. I'm thinking, eventually that sun is going to shine right through this door and it's going to be an oven in here. And I thought, I'm feeling really, and then I remember having the thought that said, well, if I can sleep, that would be great, because eventually the sun will get so hot it'll wake me up. And that'll be in a couple of hours. So I'll kind of have a solar alarm that'll go off in a couple of hours. So then I remember going, wow, I'm feeling really tired. I think, wow, and I blacked out. And I remember blacking out. I remember fainting. So then the next thing, I wake up and I remember the thought, oh my God, you've just blacked out. So I have a little bit of concern, thinking, electromagnetic frequency, I've been in here for 5-ish hours, blacking out, maybe I have to move the tent. And then that thought blends with, but wait a minute, that sun should be beaming straight in at me. It should be incredibly hot. And I'm thinking, well, so why isn't the sun down? Because I'm facing west. I'm looking out my little door to the west. There's no sun. And I think, well, where is the sun? And I turn around and I can see through the wall of my tent, the sun's in the east. So that means that not only was I there in leopard territory, but I was in a tent with an open door all night, unconscious. So anyway, so I kind of get myself together and I scramble around and I find my phone, because it's the first of 3 days, so I still have battery power in the phone. So I look at the phone and to see how long I've been passed out, or why is the sun in the east, and I look at the phone and I have been unconscious for 13 hours.
That is remarkable. That is really amazing.
So I thought, all right.
I'm really happy that the leopards were scared off by the electromagnetic fields, or there was one of the Anunnaki guardians was just keeping them away from you.
Yep. Thank God. So I kind of am still getting myself together, and I think, right, so I've kind of been unconscious for 13 hours. I slept through the heat of the sun, and anyway. And while I'm thinking that and kind of trying to orient myself, I have to pee. So I'm crawling out the door of the tent. I get out the tent, I stand up, and there they are, 4 Anunnaki spirits hanging there in midair, right in front of me, hovering over the entrance to the circle. I'm there, and I'm thinking, right. And I turn. So this is a vision quest, right? This is the whole point of a vision quest, to have a vision and to have your questions answered. So I look.
There were 4 of them?
4 of them.
4 of them? Were they more or less the same size?
More or less. Slightly different. I recall there were two that were, one that was quite the tallest, and then another about the same, and then the other two were kind of, you know, two talls, two mediums, something like that. And they said, right, so you wanted to have a chat. So we're here. We're happy to answer your questions. Okay, all right, let's go. So it was incredibly dramatic in terms of a shamanic vision to have. There they are, they're hanging there, and I can see them dressed in, you know, they kind of have like a tunic top, bare arms. They have, you know, very human looking, they have fingers and hands, and they did have a device on some of them. I don't know if all of them had, I can't remember now, but it was like some kind of a wristwatch or something. I wasn't quite sure about the feet, but the tunic went all the way down, and over the top of that was like an apron. Was this kind of apron device thing covering. And I said, well, great, okay. And they said, could we start with an apology? We have prepared a statement, and we would like to dictate that statement to you, and if you could share it with the rest of the earth. No pressure, sure. I'll just share that with the earth, no problem. And so I scrambled, I grabbed my phone, I put it on voice record, and they dictated to me this thing, which I've transcribed out. It's the actual Anunnaki apology. And it's a phenomenal piece, but that's how they wanted to start, was their prepared statement, and then happy to show me things. And so for the next 3 days, they answered questions, they showed me things, they let me visit circles in the labs in complete operation. And that's another cool Crater Mutwa story. They were moving around, not the four that were talking to me, but other workers were moving around between these different circles, which were, each circle was a vertical lab. And they were moving around, flying from circle to circle. And they were standing on what they were like silver, about the size of a bath mat. And it was silver, like a silver tray or something. And I thought, oh, now really, I'm making that shit up, because silver, flying around on silver trays, I mean, I don't know, where is this coming from? And
would that be like a flying carpet kind of?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm back at camp telling the story of this incredible experience. And I think it was Debbie, the artist who did all the murals. Jane, it was Jane, the sister. And I'm telling her this, and I'm like, well, and then I saw them on these silver things. And she says, wait. I just read that. And she went and got Crater Mutwa's book, Indaba, My Children. And she flips and flips and flips. And she reads this passage from Crater Mutwa that says that they moved around through these circles flying on silver mats. Okay, so I'm not making this shit up. But
interesting that you mentioned that Jane was one of our friends that spent that time here with us for about a month or so. She did some beautiful mural artwork for us. She also found another piece of scripture in Crater Mutwa's Indaba, My Children, where it talks about the mountains are covered in bones of the creatures of the past.
No.
Did she ever
No.
come to you with that?
No.
I couldn't believe it. She opened this page and that's what it says. The mountains are strewn and covered with the bones of the creatures of the past. And we had just discovered the fossils. That's why it was so pertinent, and that's why she was so excited about it. And she came running to me and showing me, look at this, this is what Crater talks about. And we literally had discovered, and at that stage, we didn't even know how much there was and there is. Since then, you and I have done many of these together. But even on my own, it's literally everywhere you go. The entire place around here, and I'm not just talking about my immediate surrounding area, Watervalboven and the stone circles that cover the mountains here. I'm talking about, you drive to Johannesburg and beyond Johannesburg to Rustenburg, where my mother lives at the moment, where I grew up, on the platinum mines, and the mountains there. And there are thousands of stone circles there as well. And I found fossils that, down into the Free State, into KZN, KwaZulu-Natal. It's just these fossils are everywhere.
Yep. Yep.
And you realize what a huge global event it must have taken to wipe out all these creatures, these beings that were here, the more conscious beings, those that were being farmed and killed and cut up so they had food to eat. Everything was wiped out by a flood. Obviously, there's a flood. We have the mud, we have the fossils coming out of the mud, we have the mud and the fossils together that turn to stone together, and sometimes they turn to stone separately from each other. It's incredible. That's another thing. I don't know if we discussed this yet, how the fossilization takes place, because sometimes you have the fossils that turn to stone on their own, and sometimes you have the part of the creature, whether it's a plant or a crocodile tail, that turns to stone with the mud around it. And that is a really important geological and chemical discovery to make. What conditions, what special conditions does it take for the fossils and the petrified body parts to, for it to happen, either this way or that way? Anyway, so.
Well, I love the fact that we get these things that confirm, right? Because, a lot of times, and I think this is, one of the things that I hope I always have, is this kind of, clever and slightly cautious, what feels like a bit of skepticism. And I hope I always have that.
Yeah.
So that you hear something or you see something or you see them flying on silver carpets, and there's a bit of me that goes, and I think that's good. But I think, the management or whoever they are go, nope, you need a confirmation here. And then, we get these confirmations that say, no, you're on the right. I know this is way out there, but you're on the right path. And when we get those confirmations, it's really nice, because I'm just doing what I do is I just listen. I have no idea, right? So, as the giant story, which we'll have to save for another episode, but I just started listening. I'm like, I don't know. Let's just contact whoever. Let's see if I can dial in and find whoever that is. And I'll just listen. I have no idea, if this is, I don't make a judgment, I guess. It doesn't have to fit a pre-existing paradigm in my brain.
Yeah, what you said there is just so important, and it's a subject that is central to many of my lectures. Well, all of my lectures is just you've got to keep an open mind all the time. Use the knowledge that you have as the foundation knowledge that you have, but don't make it sacrosanct. Don't make it like this is what it is. This is how it was, because that's not. You just have one piece of the puzzle and some information. Some of it might be close to the truth. Some of it could be very close to the truth, and some of it could be very far away from the truth. It's just a piece of the puzzle. You just don't know which puzzle that piece fits into.
Yep.
So we've got to constantly have open minds, and I'm just really grateful that I've been given this opportunity to be here, discover this with as open a mind as I have. And sometimes I have been a bit stubborn, and then have to go, oh my God, I was wrong, completely wrong about that. It's actually going in this direction and not that way where I thought it was going, or the storyline. It's not going there at all.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I was adamant that the stone circles were just energy generating devices, and it had nothing to do with gold mining. Now that I've learned about the nanoparticles and so forth, and that they were actually probably gold mines themselves and much more, generating an atmosphere, habitable atmosphere, putting moisture into the water. There's so much more that we're dealing with here. So you've got to keep an open mind at all times.
Yep.
I love when I meet people and they say, you know what, I have an open mind. Sorry, just hold your train of thought there. Don't lose what you... they say to you, oh, Michael, I love your work. And this, I'm a really open-minded guy. But, I go, okay, well, you just told me an open-minded guy, and then you use but. So which one is it? Are you open-minded, or is there a but?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely true. And that's an incredible fight. And I admire you for having the thick enough skin to have those fights, because the academic community, as I do more and more of these sacred sites in other places in the world, I butt up against this same thing. We've made this decision. We've decided this is what it is, and we are going to now exclude anything that does not fit in our paradigm.
Yeah. The situation here is quite staggering. I do the same conversation that I have with you with my friend Sam Osmanagic, the Bosnian pyramid guy, and I mean he's just a absolutely remarkably smart guy, one of the smartest people I've ever met, and I would say he probably knows more about pyramids than anyone else alive today, because he's got his PhD in studying pyramids across. He's the only person that I know of all the so-called pyramid experts that has actually been to the Chinese pyramids.
Oh.
That's been up and gone into the tunnels in the Chinese pyramids. So Sam Mpumalanga is an incredibly knowledgeable guy. So when he says he's discovered a pyramid in Bosnia, you better believe it. And not just one pyramid. At this stage, I think there are 5 or 6 pyramids in what he calls the pyramid complex there.
Oh.
And you know, I'm actually talking to Sam this afternoon again for another session with him. But why did I bring this up? You see, I lose my train of thought so much because there's so many
academics deciding that this is what it is.
Oh, yes. So Sam, thank you. Thank you for having a longer memory than me. I'm like a bloody chicken. Short-term memory collapse. It's not just the... So Sam it's just incredible that he has had the same kind of attack since 2005 when he first announced the discovery of the Bosnian pyramid. He's been under attack by the academia, the archaeologists. They wanted to actually stop him and prevent him. They wrote papers about him. They wanted to pass a law to stop him from researching this. And I've had exactly the same attack here from the academics, especially my old university. I'm a graduate from Wits University Medical School. And it's the Wits University and the Pretoria University that are 50 kilometers apart that have really had this attack on me since 2008. It's like if they could just remove me completely, they'd be very happy.
Yep.
But what is happening now, and this is a very interesting thing that's gonna unfold. I mentioned to you, I think previously, that as of this coming week, today is the 13th of September 2020. This coming week, we are launching the Antiquities Research Institute through the mainstream media. The discovery of the ancient ruins, some of the very unique geological formations that we found that I won't mention until we put the press release out, unique in the world, that are going to just get the geological world into an absolute spin. And we have now been tasked and given the right as an institution to identify, explore, research, and protect the ancient ruins, what we call the antiquities or the heritage sites, the geological sites, and develop responsible tourism to these sites, and through the tourism create job opportunities and stimulate the economy of those areas, the towns and the people that live there. So this is fantastic, and this has taken 12 years to get there. So as of this week, this is going to put us into a very strong position, and we're gaining more and more very powerful and influential partners, especially from the South African Black community, that are really siding with us and working with us to make this thing happen. What is happening now is that for all these years, for 12 years, I've been under attack by the academia in South Africa. Venomous, bad attacks. I'm not going into the detail. It's nasty. And they attack your character. They'll say they'll call you a pedophile. They'll call you a thief. They'll look at your taxes. They'll do anything to discredit you so that people don't believe you, because they'll think you're a questionable individual. But now that we're going to be launching, that we have this credibility and this platform, that we're going to be presenting these discoveries on a credible platform, this poses a huge problem for my old university and all these other academic establishments that have been so venomous against me. And none of them have ever been here to explore this, to investigate it, to examine it, the things that I talk about. Nobody. They just write about it. They completely deny it. It's like saying, it doesn't exist. No, he's making it up. It's all lies, lies, lies. Now they're going to be exposed to have been lying and just denying this for 12 years. This is developing into a very interesting situation.
Yep.
What's going to happen? I don't know, but I'm enjoying it right now, because suddenly, after having to defend myself, and not defend myself, I don't really give a crap about what they say about me at the academia. It's just when they really tarnish your name and your reputation in the media, and they do all the time. It's now going to backfire on them. Keep in mind that every time I make a discovery or I put something into the media, what these journalists do, they take that press release of mine and they run. First of all, they run to the professor at the university. Oh, what do you know about this Michael Tellinger's discovery? And 100% of the time. Oh, it's all rubbish. Michael Tellinger doesn't know what he's talking about. That's what the journalists hear from the academics. So you can imagine the journalist doesn't know. They just want to get some academic response. So for 12 years they've been getting that Michael Tellinger is an idiot and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And now suddenly Michael Tellinger is responsible for the protection and the maintenance and developing tourism to all these sites that our tourism industry is now rallying around us in support of what we've got. This is going to be a very interesting next year, I guess.
Well, we live in this incredible time where all of this is changing. And I thought I wanted to read a paragraph out of the apology which relates to this.
Yes, that's what I was going to ask you. Because, you've got pages and pages of this apology. We're going to need a whole hour or 2 or 3 just for that.
I think that there are some parts that are interesting. So basically, it includes a couple of parts. Part of it is just flat out, we apologize, we did this bad thing, we did this, it went wrong, and then they tell their side of the story. This is why we came, this is what we did, we realize now in hindsight. So a lot of it is apology, some of it is, here's what it was like, here's what we did, so their version of the story. And then another part of it is their hope. If we can send this out to you, here's our hope for you. By explaining this, maybe you can see that there's another choice for you guys. So this paragraph starts with, we would implore you to honor sustainability above innovation, to honor partnership and collaboration over control and domination. That's what you're up against. Then they go on to say, the qualities of domination and control came from us. These qualities have created the disharmony you now live with. We see that our ego was fed by a continual diet of innovation, control, and domination. Our hope for you is that you can turn away from this pattern that you inherited from us and look for partnership, cooperation, and sustainability above all. And that's everything that you're doing now. I think that's just such a beautiful...
You know what? I don't think that you've read this part to me before. I know that you gave me your printed version or your written version of this, which I read pieces of, but it's just so bloody long. I haven't actually sat and read it. I've been waiting to talk to you about it, so I'm glad we're doing this because I want to go through this in detail and actually get it on record with you actually reading it, so we have it as a recorded format as well. But, so many people, channelers and people have come to me. I've never claimed this, but I've been told that, I'm some sort of a reincarnation of Enki or an aspect of Enki and that's why I've got this knowledge and information of how to create a better world or a new world without violence or conflict, without money. And I'm just actually getting goosebumps when you read that, because I've not heard this intro before. And that's exactly what the Ubuntu movement and the One Small Town strategy is all about. Partnerships, collaboration. We don't need innovation. We've got all the innovation we have. We don't have to constantly innovate. And the moment you get rid of money, you have this sharing society and community that everybody has access to everything, all the information, technology, healthcare, welfare, food, and unity in the community, as opposed to domination, which always leads to conflict. This is beautiful, Joe. That's awesome you brought that up, because that is just...
Yeah.
Okay, carry on.
Well, we're getting close to an hour. A couple of my other favorite parts are, again, that we've said before, I think that the Anunnaki that we're dealing with in South Africa is the Enki Anunnaki. It's very different. Everything I feel, everything that's happened to me feels completely different than the Enlil Anunnaki of Mesopotamia. I think that was a whole nother game. And I think what Enki was doing down here is a completely different. And they have been incredibly generous. They have been incredibly positive. There hasn't been any of this domination and control stuff, which is what you feel when people that write about the Anunnaki that are coming from the Mesopotamian side of the game. It feels very Yahweh domineering control.
bloodletting, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, sacrifice. You know what you just actually said was really interesting, because I haven't thought of this before, and I've not made this connection before. And that is that the word Ubuntu and the way that African culture and societies have evolved for thousands of years is in the Ubuntu spirit. That's where it comes from. It's the word Ubuntu comes from. But it's a Southern African word. North Africa has the same system, but it's under different names and different words. So the whole Ubuntu thing, since Enki and the Anunnaki were here in South Africa, Southern Africa, Zimbabwe, South Africa mostly, and some of our neighboring countries, that mentality and that spirit of unity and working together and not innovation, rather than being happy in your environment, looking after your community, don't worry about oppression and innovation in that. Maybe that is why the whole spirit of Ubuntu is much stronger in the African communities and African civilization rather than up in Europe, and especially Mesopotamia. I'm not saying it's always been like this. There's overwhelming evidence that early humans did not have money, and they did not compete, and they did not fight wars about money. There's overwhelming evidence, and I guess we can talk about that in another session. Yeah. But this is archaeological evidence, actually, that shows that there was a time that money did not exist, and people didn't use money, that it didn't even use bartering or trading of any kind, that even that was a concept that evolved much later, that the original communities of people that lived together lived completely in harmony and peacefully together, sharing everything that they created, like a family would. If we live in a family on a farm, we grow food or we develop technology, everybody in our family benefits from what we create for ourselves. So if we just extend that from our family to our community to the rest of the world, it's a continuation of that human spirit of sharing and caring and taking care of each other.
Yep.
So the fact that your Anunnaki apology starts with that message is just amazing. Hear it in South Africa. Very important.
Well, another of my favorite parts is they said, "You live on an incredibly beautiful planet. Understand that she is a living being, different from other planets. Our wish for you is to work with her and not, as we did, exploit her."
Wow.
That is
cool. Yeah. And once again, that's the Ubuntu and the one small town message. Exactly that.
Yep. So, I mean, the apology talks about it was kind of the Wild West, and they came. So they said, we came and we plundered. We saw the potential of this place and we exploited it. We changed the atmosphere. We created a species. Both of these were gross interventions. So they own it. But they said, that in talking about us, the being that got created, they said, you have some of this potential in you. They said, you call it just human nature. It's just human nature to go and exploit, or just go and rape and pillage, or to take all the gold, or to take all the lumber, or to take all. That's just human nature, isn't it? Well, that's kind of what they said. That's kind of what we did.
Yeah, I understand exactly, because it's a genetic code, obviously, that we are a product of our DNA material. That's very simple. We know that today. And let me just remind people that that's exactly what it is. Every aspect of our body is a product of the DNA that is in us, controls every cell in our body. The creation of that cell, the manifestation of that cell, the consciousness of that cell is actually imbued into the electromagnetic field of the DNA that makes it up. It's all connected through frequency, vibration, and resonance, and then these magnetic toroidal fields that seem to control everything in our reality, the seen and the unseen. But this DNA thing, that we have obviously large chunks of Anunnaki DNA. And this is another important thing. So what they teach us at school is that our DNA is evolved DNA. It's absolute rubbish. It's not true at all. That should be taken out of all textbooks. Because if you speak to any geneticist, any molecular biologists don't often understand genetics as well as geneticists do. And I've had the fortune of knowing 3 world-class, probably the leading genetic scientists in the world. One of them lives here in Johannesburg. So access to her if I want to, and I ask her anything. And the other one is a good friend of mine that was in Hawaii. He's now in California. And the other one is in Europe. But they all tell you very clearly, and they're not the only ones. There are many other independent geneticists that tell you human DNA is a patchwork of spliced DNA material. It is not a DNA strand, as we would call that is naturally evolved and was created. It's a very definitely and very obviously a patchwork of spliced DNA pieces together and make up the DNA that gives us these very specific functions and features that we have. So clearly we have Anunnaki DNA in our genetic makeup, and in there would be the characteristics that they possess to go and et cetera, et cetera. But at the same time, we have the other side of DNA, whatever DNA that is that they use, and that remains a big question, right? We have some information from your channelings and downloads and information. But then the other side of it that makes us loving and embracing and that want to believe and want to do good and want to help those in need and those in trouble and in despair. And that's the part of human nature that I believe is the overwhelming part of human nature, is to be good and kind and to create and share and to take care of each other, not to go and conquer, plunder, and destroy, because somewhere at the back of our minds, we know that while I'm invading this village or this country or this city, I'm creating enemies. And sooner or later, they're going to turn around and remember what I did to them, and they're going to come and back and take it out on me. It might not be them that I conquered, but it might be their children. And this is the problem. And I've been thinking very deeply about what's going on in the world right now. And there's this terrible wave of, white guilt, putting guilt on white people about what their ancestors did, and then putting guilt on whatever these people and those people, all these guilts putting on, and this obviously is used to ignite racial friction, and that's obviously by design, very cleverly designed by those that want to divide us, and they're using race to divide people. And what has really become very evident to me is that for as long as we blame the children for the sins of their fathers, we will forever be in a situation of conflict. How could you possibly blame a child for what their ancestors did? This child might be a product of their ancestors, but it's an individual, living, breathing human being of flesh and blood and immortal soul. That being should be judged upon the character of their actions and what they speak and how they behave in their community, not about what their ancestors did. So for as long as we put blame on anyone, any person alive, anyone that is blamed for anything done by any one of their ancestors, we'll forever have friction and warfare and conflict. And this is a really important message that I'd like people to think about. And, we have that problem here in South Africa with the apartheid legacy. They're still blaming the kids today for apartheid. It's like the kids born today have got nothing to do with it. It's like blaming all the Zulus for what Shaka Zulu did. They got nothing. Who's born today have got nothing to do with what Shaka Zulu did or his brother Dingaan. They were basically, they were dictators. They killed thousands. They murdered. They invaded and killed people. So we got to stop the blame game and start to recognize that when a child is born, it comes into this world as an individual special gift to humanity and needs to be treated like a gift to humanity and be given all the tools necessary to grow into a well-balanced, well-informed member of society that can contribute through his or her skills and natural God-given talents to benefit and contribute to their society. And that's the message of Ubuntu and One Small Town and contributionism.
Yep. And the shamanic perspective of that is that at the point that you blame someone, you separate.
Yeah.
The minute you blame, you have separation. And if we're all going to come together, and if there is this pervading energy that we can all tap into, that doesn't judge, that doesn't care, that doesn't choose, there's no blame. Blame doesn't have a place in there. Responsibility, no question. There's responsibility, but as you say, it's responsibility for your actions. Not the actions of your father or your grandfather, your great-great-great-great-grandfather.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think, John Paul, we've done a good hour here today.
We have.
Let's Okay. And we'll pick up. I'd like you to prepare some more of the writings and that you have from your shamanic journeys and the downloads. And so there's just so much we can talk about. And let's see where our next journey takes us. Maybe we'll talk about the giants. I know that the people love the interaction with the giants and what you found and the downloads that you got and the guardians and the giants that you spoke to in your shamanic journeys. Yeah. That's a fascinating story.
That's pretty wild. Yeah. So let's stay tuned, everyone.
Yeah.
The discovery of giants and having to go. I mean, this has been kind of my journey. As I remember when I said in the previous episode that I had to accept aliens. There was a point when that's who I was talking to, and I had to accept it was real. And there was a point, and it's all because of you. When I travel with you, that I go, okay, giants. All right, let's go. Sure. Giants. Why not? All right, whatever. And then when I was down with Claire, I was like, okay, mineral consciousness, conscious mineral. Okay, sure. Let's go.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing about it, and again, we need to talk about this in future episodes and discussions, is the consciousness of everything.
Yeah.
And it's important for those that think they're very clever and they're scientific minds and, is it scientific and so forth. Please understand that what we call scientific today is so far removed from real science and real knowledge that it actually should not even be called scientific. It's more dogma than anything else. And keep in mind that one of the greatest scientists of all time, one of the greatest recent discoverers, the guy, probably the father of quantum mechanics and quantum physics, is Max Planck. And one of Max Planck's most important quotes that is never spoken about in science. He talks about the quantum particles and, the quantum leap. And remember, that's what he discovered, is the electrons move. They just disappear in one place and they reappear in another place. Basically, what Max Planck discovered is magic in the quantum field. Things biolocate. They disappear and they reappear here. That's in today's, in the big world, that's called magic, right? And we accept it in the quantum mechanical department because most people have no idea what that even means. Quantum mechanics, they hear the word, it's very impressive to them, and they don't want to go there because they think they won't understand it. Well, let me tell you, it is so simple. Watch one of my lectures, and I'll be talking about this. I'll be doing, in my own time, I'll be doing deep, intensive lectures on the quantum field, quantum mechanics, and how it all works, and how simple it is, how these bloody idiots at universities and complicate all this particle physics and all this crap that they shove down in textbooks, all absolutely based on pseudoscience and a complete lack of knowledge of what's really going on. And see, I'm already going down that road, so I want to come back.
What's the Max Planck quote?
Max Planck quote. So I'll end today on this. This is just beautiful. He says, everything is dependent on consciousness. Nothing gets behind consciousness. Everything comes from the field of consciousness. Everything in creation comes from the field of consciousness. You cannot get behind consciousness. Very important. This is Max Planck, okay? So, they never, or in mainstream physics, I bet you they don't even bring this up in physics school or quantum mechanics school because they don't want the students to think like that. What did Max Planck mean by that? Very important. And I would like to I will go into in my separate lectures on quantum mechanics and particle physics. It's actually beautiful. Once you realize how simple it is, it's like, it's another one of those aha moments when you realize how we've been lied to and how simple everything is. And you realize how simple life and everything around us and our communities should be as well.
Gorgeous. All right. Until next time.